The first speaker is Eike Faber. He is a staff member at the Institute of History at the University of Potsdam and has been a research assistant at the chair of the History of Antiquity at the University of Potsdam since 2007. In 2013, he received his doctorate with a thesis on the Christianity of the Goths, published in 2014, and please excuse my German as it is not very good, von Ulfila bis Recaret die Goten und ihr Christentum. Spot on. Thank you. His work focuses on the field of late antiquity, in particular on the religious history of the period and on the so-called Walke-Wanderung, as well as in the field of conflict studies. He is, among other things, a member of the editorial committee of Potestas and a member of the Associación Barbaricum. And Eike will be talking this morning on warrior women in classical Athens between Amastos and Anti-Aneira in literary and artistic depiction. Thank you, Eike.
Thank you so much for those kind words and the introduction. Thank you, Adelina Modesti and Consuelo Lollobrigida, for setting this up, for getting this conference going. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present my ideas on a topic which you've just heard to me is kind of new or not the usual topic. I'm thanking the University of Arkansas Rome program for the hospitality. And I think it's apparent I'm starting at the beginning, chronologically. That's just the earliest things we know about the Amazons. And after that, I'm here to learn and listen in on the long reception history that the Amazons have had and still enjoy. And that's the part I'm aware that I don't know much about. As you have heard, and as the title of my presentation makes clear, I'm a historian, not an art historian. I will show you photos and maybe you point out to me what I didn't see. We'll see how it goes. All right, we'll start. I have an outline on the next slide, but I'll start with a map and show you around where Amazons lived according to mythical thinking in antiquity. We are seeing the Black Sea. Apologies for the German map, German text on the map. We are close to the Mediterranean, seeing the Aegean Sea and the Black Sea centered. The Amazons feature in the Trojan cycle of myth and legend. The storyline as such is very old. We are talking before the 9th century. The Iliad and Odyssey are from 750, 725, 675, before Common Era. And the Amazons feature in that. Those epics where they are central characters are the written version is much later, much younger that is, but the epic still remains the same as its core. In classical times, that is the 5th, 4th century before Common Era, we hear about a competition at Ephesus among sculptors, of course, who's the best and who does the best Amazon. So we have got contemporary evidence that it was in the 440s, 430s, and we have statues to match. That's the second one on the left. The classical author Herodotus, Pater Historiae, writes about all kinds of things in relation to the Persian War and explains the world as he sees it to his Greek audience. And he places the Amazons close to the Black Sea at the edge of the Eurasian steppe where the Scythians come from. So they are closely associated with Scythians. And there's an entire mythology, anecdotes about that, which I don't have time to go into even, but there's more to come. And of course, all of us know Wonder Woman. I've got some marketing thing from a supermarket, and that's where I put it. I don't know if you can see that properly. That's Wonder Woman down there at a supermarket, and in the film, in the movies, and in the legend, she is placed at Themyscira in modern Turkey. So that's how I'm going to go about that. We're going to see the evidence for that competition between sculptors. We are going to read a text about a deadly fight at Troy. I'm going to ask why should one speak about Amazons, and I'm going to present 3 options, and you're going to see what I'm trying to do. I referenced civic society in the title of my presentation, so we need to go into that and see what do I mean, what's relevant for Greek civic society. Bullet number 5 is the second time we are going to look at Amazon etymology and where do there's bywords come from. The first time is Amazon is anti-anairai. We are going to then look at different images of Amazons on slightly different media with 3 main Greek heroes. And we will then finish the anecdote from slide 2 and ask what happens after a hero kills an Amazon. What can happen then? We end with the Ephesian statues, and we end again with what the sources, the myths, the interpretations of scholarship tell us Greek men want, and it turns out they all want to marry an Amazon. They don't even know that while they're fighting, but after the fight, they realize they wanted to all along. Okay, so we're at Ephesus, at the height of Greek culture and Greek art history, or at one that we define as the height. And the Artemision of Ephesus holds the competition among sculptors. We have 5 entries, and we know, or we associate known statues, known copies with the names of 3 very well-known sculptors. We are seeing Roman copies of the originals who are from the classical age and spread all over the world, as you can see, fixed, assembled together from various traditions, but all according to those 3 types. They have very peculiar postures, and each Amazon is equipped to different sort of fighting technique, shall we say. The one who won first prize is in a way a Greek hoplite, a citizen warrior of Athens. The one in the middle, the second prize, is styled as an archer, which in the case of Athens would have come from Crete, would not be a citizen if it were a male fighter. The third prize is looking like a rider and a knight, so to speak, elite cavalry, also Athenian citizens. So they are closely modeled on male patterns, male equipment within the confines of the genre that they are standing there really rather naked, but it's visible to someone who looks for the bow, who looks for the lance, and whatever it be. And it's a bit strange that at Ephesus we have that. They are looking like Athenian military, and that is explainable at the time for 40s, for 30s, because Athens has dominion and Ephesus is included in the Delian League. So there may be a reason why it's politically appropriate to display them like that. It would be a bit odious even from the 4th century and after that. So then it must just be tradition, and they are already there. All right, what do we see? We see statues of standing women, originally made in bronze and slightly larger than life. The copies we have range between 180 and 2 meters and 2 in size. They are warlike women, warlike Amazons, in a situation which is not entirely clear, but it's after a fight. They've been wounded. They are supposed to be reasonably beautiful. They are very naked compared to other classical statuary and other archaic statuary of women. I would think they look Western, Caucasian, and very white, not necessarily in the sense of white, like the table, like the furniture, but white as in an ideal of Europeanness or whatever have you. It may be from the modern copies, it may be that the Athenians bring that to the table. And of course, the originals weren't white, they were polychromatic in different colors and wore colorful clothes, among other things. We are going to Troy, we're changing location. And we are at a point in time in the Trojan legends after the Iliad plot, before the Odyssey plot, and there's myriad other plot lines that all come together which form an entire circle. So we are in old stories, and what we are about to witness is the entry of Penthesilea, queen of the Amazons, who enters the war against the war of the Greek against the Trojans on the Trojan side, and defends them, intends to fight against the Greeks. And what we are asking is, what does Amazones anti-Anairai mean? How are they equal to men? With these words, the Amazons donned their shining armor and poured out from their camp by the ships in powerful array. They entered the bloody fray with the appetite of wild beasts for raw flesh, all well equipped with spears, breastplates, strong shields of ox hide, and stout helmets. Now foe hacked at foe with reckless abandon, and the Trojan soil grew red. Then Penthesilea slew Molion, Persinous, Ailissus, Antiteus, and violent Lernus, Hippalmus, Haemonides, and mighty Elasippus. The Danaans are the Greeks. There are different words for Greeks, and we will see most of them in the quotations I have for you. What we are having is a very typical Aristeia scene. A scene where a hero or a heroine, in that case, gets especially glorious entry, gets especial bravery, and is killing very many foes. That's a very typical scene for Odysseus, Agamemnon, Achilles, for the men, and Penthesilea also gets one, and she kills, I think it's more than 5 people in those few lines. They are heroes, they are fighting, they are dressed and equipped exactly like the men. Penthesilea's battle ardor was unabated, like some lioness in the high mountains who rushes through the deep and rocky ravine to pounce on a herd of cows, lusting for blood, her heart's delight. Just so Ares' maiden daughter pounced on the Danaans. That's where the Danaans come in, who are the Greeks, by the way. Penthesilea, queen of the Amazons, is compared to a lioness. She is lusting for blood and raging to fight and to enter the fray, and she is closely associated with Ares, the Greek god of war. She is also fierce, if you take both quotations together, and strong, and whatever she is, because she is Ares' maiden daughter. So that status is referenced, and that's important as it turns out. That spear of mine, that spear cast of mine may have been in vain, but with this one I shall put an end to the strength and spirit of both of you, for all your brave boasting among the Greeks, and then the horse-taming Trojans will suffer much less in the battle. Come closer, make your way through the fighting, and see with what force and spirit we Amazons are endowed. My ancestry is no less warlike than yours. I am the daughter of no mortal man, but of Ares himself, who is never sated with the din of battle. That is why I am far superior to valor to men. So again, it's the Greeks, the horse-taming Trojans is a very typical byword of epic poetry. They live by those set lines, and Penthesilea makes clear she is fighting for the Trojans and will get them to win. So the question is now, why would the Amazons, why would Penthesilea be a daughter of Ares? That is because fitting female deities, which would be more akin to our ideas that the Amazons have a patron person, a patron deity who was female, and fitting deities are Artemis, responsible for the hunt maybe, and Athena, responsible for war, the arts and wisdom, and the city of Athens, are maiden goddesses, neither of which is a mother. It's in their very core. They are not mothers. So we cannot use the closely associated persons from the pantheon with the Amazons. They cannot start a genealogy. Ares can. That's why they put him at the start of the Amazons. We'll now leave this scene by means of a cliffhanger, just as Achilles is going to make his entrance. And in a way, Achilles is associated. He is associated with war, and he is also associated with Ares. And I should add that Ares is really despised by all his colleagues from the godly pantheon of the Olympians. So it's a strange one to have as a founding figure. I'm certain there are more reasons to speak about Amazons. I've come up with those three, and I'm referencing the brilliant book by Adrian Mayer, brilliant recent book by Adrian Mayer on the subject. So it's totally, it makes a lot of sense to look for historical warrior women, which is, in my reading, the main point of what Adrian Mayer does. She looks for proof, and she does so successfully, for real-world warrior women in antiquity in the first millennium BC and later, who are probable examples and inspirations for Amazons in Athenian myth, in Greek myth, and she finds those inspirational people in the Eurasian steppe, in burials. They were only recently properly excavated and researched, and it used to be the case that a burial with horse, saddle, and weapons was a male burial, just because of the material associated with it. And new research shows that genetics and the bones and everything makes clear it's a woman. She has been fighting, she has been a fighter, she has been wounded, the bones have healed, she has been fighting again. So there are those warrior women, we find them in the graves. And the Greeks knew about those. You saw the map where the Greek world associates Amazons and other people. The second bullet is what I'm trying to do. I'm going to try and ask, why do the Greeks tell those tales? I'm aware that Amazons exist. That's a good enough reason, but I don't think it's quite exactly the reason. And the Amazons on the pictures don't quite look like what we find in those burials. So it's a step removed. It's 2 steps removed. And there ought to be a reason why Greek myth, Greek stories, Greek art depicts Amazons. I'm trying to get at why that is, what that is. So on a general level, those women are going to be an other of some kind, and I'm trying to put more flesh on that point. The third point, and I'm assuming that's what I'm going to hear in the other presentation, that's what you are doing, is looking at what can other times do with those Amazons, how do we read them, how do we incorporate them, how do people express themselves with reference to Amazons. So that's what I came here to hear. I'm offering my stuff, and I'm looking for yours, hoping for yours. So we're coming to the subject of civic society, which I referenced in the title, which means looking at the Athenian state, Greek polis states, and their public and private life, which is centered around a dichotomy of oikos and polis. Oikos is a household, and polis is the state, for want of a better word. State, society, cult, communication with the gods. all of that is included. It's a typically Greek dichotomy. Both are conceptually very clearly different. The oikos is supposed to be very self-sufficient, very autonomous, headed by the Kyrios, a male citizen who is the head of his family, who also is defined, and the oikos is defined by land ownership. So that's the complex. One guy, his family, the people who depend on him, and his land and maybe his houses. Those oikoi are ideally totally isolated. In fact, they are not. They make up a polis, and those guys, those curious people, citizens, need to come together, need to organize, need to have a statehood in whatever forms we could define it and get closer to it. So the citizens. Wow. Well, I'm already out of time. We are looking at that not a diagram, because we see men and women, and we see a burial scene. The women have very styled in a very peculiar way. They have gestures. They have different colored skin from the men. The men look outward to the polis. The women look inward. That's where they, according to this, ought to look. I'm not saying they have to, but I'm saying that's what the picture says. This is where, in Greek art, women work indoors, without men, some sort of manual, practical thing, often weaving, because weaving is high status. That's what a woman of status does. The life worlds of women they are daughters. In an ideal case, they become married women, wives, and then mothers. That's the expectation. It's not on the picture, but the context is there. Etymologically, we have amastos and amatsa for the Amazons, which can mean without a breast or without bread, without eating bread. And the without breast etymology is much better known and probably extremely unrealistic. We read that it's because they need to shoot a bow. And if we look at modern archers, men or women, doesn't affect them much, as far as I can tell. So it's not true. The amatsa, the not eating bread, associates them with the steppe, with a nomadic lifestyle. It's the opposite of polis and sedentary agricultural living. If we look at pictures of Amazons, finally, and we are trying to circle back to the war scene, the fighting scene, they are very typical. All the great foundational heroes fight Amazons. We see an early picture, Heracles defeats Amazons. The fight is tough. One Amazon is even winning. In all, the men are winning. What does he go for? He goes for a belt. What does Heracles want? He wants that belt of the Amazon queen. And in having her belt, she is naked. She is at his power. That's what's at stake in that fight. Same but different. Theseus, the Athenian hero. Heracles, the Greek hero. Theseus, the Athenian hero. And he is getting one of his wives by kidnapping an Amazon. It may be Antiope, it may be the Amazon queen herself. Either way, he carries her away. They marry, they have a son. That Amazon who marries Theseus will fight against her sisters when they attack Athens, which is a foundational myth for Athens and which is the basic reason why they paint Amazons anywhere. Fight at Troy. Achilles fighting Penthesilea. We have heard Penthesilea shout, "Come on, fight me." And that's the picture of it. Achilles wins. Achilles will kill her. We see it in the pictures. We'll see the text in a moment. I'm going to have to read this text, otherwise it doesn't make sense. Reversal of gender roles. Principle of reversal structures the entire world of Amazons. No men but women, no marriages, and what have you, fighting. A female warrior is a contradiction in terms. It is for Greek thinking, they can't exist, they can't be warriors, they should be men, they are women. It doesn't compute. that makes Amazons liminal persons, liminal figures. What kind of figures? Daughters. They assume temporarily a boy's role, and by their androgynous nature, they are much stronger than normal men, which is what all the fighting scenes show us, where only heroes are strong enough to overcome those Amazons. Achilles kills Penthesilea, and what happens then? He tries to rob her of her stuff, of her armor, a spear, helmet, breastplate, what have you, as you would with any male opponent. And what happens then? He is totally flabbergasted because she isn't dead and bloody and bruised. She's beautiful. The gods make Penthesilea at the moment of dying supremely beautiful. Aphrodite herself makes her beautiful. So Achilles sort of doesn't agree with his killing Penthesilea. All the men around wish, oh my, that should have been my wife. I wish I had a wife like her. So does Achilles. The moment of killing, the moment of swap, Achilles, and everyone agrees, says, I should have married her. Salvador Dali does it with one painting, what I've avoided so far. Why the posture of those Amazon statues? It's not for fun. It's not for the viewing pleasure, not entirely at least. In the logic of it, it's because they are wounded below the arm in the fight, and I apologize for not having photos of that. The statues show that, and the polychromatic statues show it better, but I haven't got a photo. That's where the Amazons are wounded. That's why they are going to soon be falling down and dying. But we're seeing the moment of switch from the warlike, fierce, independent Amazon, who is enigmatic, to a woman the Greeks can comprehend, possess, want to marry. There are other people who die in the Greek art, also men. That's the Gauls in Hellenistic art. They are also another of a different kind, but there's a tradition of putting them on mostly naked, mostly wounded, and we ought to compare that really. Again, Tyrell, and that's the last slide. The Amazon, the liminal figure of transition rights, whose world is the reversal of all that is valued by the male. The male who holds the position of power in the household, who needs to get along with his peers to form a state, so a state can exist, but who wants to be autonomous as possible, and he doesn't want anyone else coming into his household, neither does he want to take anyone from his household, not a daughter, not a son, ideally, but they have to. And the Amazon myth illustrates what happens if they don't accept daughters-in-law, and if they don't give their daughters to someone else's son to marry. So that's what Tyrell said in the 80s already. I think it's still true, and it fits in with the artistic depiction of Amazon is fierce. We can overcome her, and the woman that's wounded is beautiful, is one that is marriageable, and all falls into place then. Yes, exactly. No belt, no girdle anymore, but Heracles has that. Amazon myths, to quote Tyrell again, explain the necessity to a man, to a head of household, for their daughter to marry by portraying the consequences of daughters of citizens not marrying other people outside the household. That was 7 or 8 minutes. I apologize. I apologize to all of you for the rush, but I felt the link between text, scholarship, and pictures to be important. Thank you so much. I'm very appreciative. I want to know what you're going to ask and comment. Thank you.